Welcome back to the deep dive. If you're preparing for an IVF cycle, or maybe just curious about the massive hormonal effort that goes into creating life, well, you're about to meet a real unsung hero, progesterone.
Yeah, in the world of IVF, which is so intense and, highly regulated, this one hormone, P4, as the specialists call it, is often called the hormone that decides success. We've gone through a lot of research and notes to really explain why.
It really is foundational. You think about estradiol as the hormone that builds the house frame.
Okay.
Progesterone is like the contractor who comes in, makes it actually livable, stabilizes everything, puts up the welcome sign. Its main job is pretty clear.
Yeah.
Get the body ready for pregnancy, and then crucially keep it that way. Right. So here's what we want you to get out of this deep dive. We're going to understand why adding extra P4 is basically essential in IVF. Look at how it's delivered, which can be pretty intense, and why the timing, getting that timing just right, is so critical for making sure the uterus is ready when the embryo arrives. Let's get into it.
Okay, so let's start right at the beginning. When that embryo is ready to implant, what is progesterone actually doing in the uterus?
Well, P4 is basically the master transformer for the uterine lining, the endometrium. Estrogen builds it up, makes it thick. That's the proliferative phase.
Right, the building phase.
Exactly. Then progesterone steps in and changes it into what we call a secretory state. Think vascular, nutrient-rich.
Okay, can you make that a bit more concrete? Like functionally, what does that transformation mean?
Sure. Imagine the proliferative state is like a newly built empty room.
The secretory state, thanks to P4, is like a fully furnished kitchen, stocked with food, great plumbing, meaning lots of blood vessels, ready for action. P4 handles that vital shift, making sure the lining is nutritious enough for that incoming embryo.
And this is where we get to the famous window of implantation, right?
Precisely. The uterus isn't just open for business anytime. It's receptive only during a very specific short period. Usually starts about 6 to 10 days after the P4 exposure begins. That's the WOI, the window of implantation.
So timing is everything.
Absolutely. P4 has to be timed perfectly. It's like catching a train too early, too late, you miss it.
So what are doctors actually looking for on scans to know, okay, we're in the window?
They need two main things. First, thickness, usually looking for something between 7 and 12 millimeters on the ultrasound.
Okay.
And second, P4 creates this really specific internal look. They call it a triple line pattern, that pattern you see on the ultrasound. It's basically the visual confirmation that the lining is mature and ready for the embryo.
That structural change is amazing.
Yeah.
But I hear P4 does more, like preventing the body from rejecting the embryo.
Yes, that's one of its really fascinating jobs. It modulates the immune system locally. It does two key things here. First, it calms the uterine muscles, preventing tiny contractions that could literally push the embryo away.
Ah, okay.
Second, remember, the embryo has foreign DNA from the father. P4 promotes immune tolerance right there in the uterus. It dials down the aggressive immune cells and fosters a more welcoming environment so the mother's body doesn't attack the embryo like it's, an infection.
Okay, so P4 is clearly essential for making the uterus ready. But the body makes it naturally after ovulation, doesn't it? So why is supplementation, often those intense shots, so standard in IVF?
That comes down to the IVF process itself. The medications used for ovarian stimulation, the high doses, and then egg retrieval procedure. Well, they often suppress the corpus luteum.
And the corpus luteum is the body's natural P4 factory, right?
Exactly right. It's what's left of the follicle after the egg pops out, and it pumps out P4. But IVF protocols can disrupt it or just shut it down. This leads to something called luteal phase deficiency.
Meaning not enough natural P4?
Precisely. Natural levels drop, the lining isn't stable, and without adding extra P4, the chances of pregnancy plummet.
So you have to manually step in. Our sources mention three main ways. Let's start with the one that sounds, well, maybe more comfortable.
That would probably be vaginal progesterone. It comes in gels, suppositories, sometimes little tablets. The big plus is efficiency. The P4 goes right to the uterus, less needs to circulate through the whole body.
So fewer side effects systemically.
Generally, yes, because it bypasses the liver mostly. The downsides are local things like discharge, maybe some irritation, or patients often mention a kind of gritty feeling.
Okay. Then we have the other end of the spectrum, the gold standard for consistency, but maybe the toughest one, intramuscular injections.
Ah, yes, the PIO shot. Progesterone in oil. These are daily, deep muscle injections, usually in the backside. They are definitely tough, but often crucial.
Why are they considered so essential despite the pain?
Consistency. Plain and simple. These shots guarantee rapid absorption and really stable hormone levels in the blood. And keeping those levels high and steady is just vital for maintaining that receptive lining continuously.
And the commitment involved sounds huge. These aren't small needles, right? They cause soreness, bruising.
They can, yeah. It's often the oil base itself, usually sesame, sometimes peanut or olive oil. It's needed to slow down the absorption, but it's thick and can irritate the muscle tissue.
Ouch.
Yeah, patients often use heat packs, massage, special injection techniques just to cope with the daily shots for weeks, maybe even months. It really shows the dedication involved.
And the third option, oral. Sounds
Mhm.
easier.
It sounds easier, yeah, but oral progesterone is generally less common for this specific job in IVF. The problem is, when you take it orally, a lot gets broken down by the liver before it can really get to the uterus in high enough concentrations to do the work.
So less effective for uterine support.
Often, yes.
Okay.
And while it avoids the shot pain, it can cause more systemic side effects like drowsiness or dizziness. Specialists really guide patients through these options, considering their history, any allergies to the oils, comfort levels, that kind of thing. Hashtag tag tag 3, timing, monitoring, and challenges.
Okay, let's shift to precision. You mentioned timing earlier, but it sounds like when you start P4 is just as critical as how much you get.
It is absolutely paramount. Remember that short window of implantation?
Yeah.
We have to sync the lining's readiness perfectly with the embryo's developmental stage. So for a standard day 5 blastocyst transfer,
Which is common, right?
very common. P4 is usually started exactly 5 or maybe 6 days before that transfer day.
Wait, you mentioned earlier even a small delay, like
Right.
12 hours, could be a problem. That level of precision is wild.
It really is. Missing a dose or even delaying it by half a day can throw things off. It causes what we call embryo endometrial asynchrony. Basically, the embryo shows up, but the house isn't quite ready, or maybe it's already past its prime receptivity.
And starting too early is also bad.
Yes, if you start P4 too soon, the lining can mature prematurely. That effectively shrinks that crucial WOI, or you might miss it altogether.
Okay, with such tight margins, how do doctors keep track? How do they monitor things?
It's usually a two-pronged approach. They monitor the P4 levels in the blood with serum tests, typically aiming for somewhere between 10 and 20 nanograms per milliliter.
Okay, 10 to 20 NDML.
Right. And at the same time, they're looking at the lining itself with ultrasound checking for that thickness and the telltale triple line pattern we talked about.
Now here's something interesting. Our sources flagged something that could cause needless worry. The P4 blood test results when using vaginal progesterone.
Ah, yes, this is crucial. Key point. Don't panic if your blood test shows low P4 levels when you're using vaginal gels or suppositories.
Well, why not?
Because that P4 is being absorbed directly by the uterus, the target organ, it doesn't necessarily circulate much in the bloodstream first. So, blood tests might look deceptively low even when the uterus is getting exactly the support it needs. In that case, doctors trust the ultrasound more, the thickness, the pattern.
That's a really important distinction to know. Okay, what about the other side of the coin? P4 levels rising too early.
Yeah, that's a problem called premature progesterone rise, or PPR. It happens when P4 levels jump up unexpectedly during the stimulation phase before the trigger shot that matures the eggs.
What causes that?
It can be linked to high doses of fertility meds, or sometimes advanced maternal age is a factor. When PPR happens, it unfortunately often means the cycle has to be stopped and the embryo is frozen for a later transfer.
Why freeze them?
Because that early P4 rise has already started closing the window of implantation for that cycle. A fresh transfer just wouldn't likely work. It forces a delay to get the timing right later.
Wow, okay, so PPR is a major timing disruptor. What if someone's doing everything right, the timing is good, but their P4 levels just stay low after the transfer, like under that 10 NGML mark?
Then doctors implement what they call rescue protocols. Signs of low P4 might include spotting or light bleeding after transfer. The doctor will likely act fast, maybe increase the P4 dosage or switch the delivery method. Often they'll switch from vaginal to the intramuscular injections to get those levels up reliably.
P4 is clearly a star player, but like you said, it's part of a bigger team, a whole hormonal orchestra. How does it interact with others?
Well, we already talked about estradiol, E2. They work hand in glove. E2 builds the structure, P4 stabilizes and matures it. They absolutely have to be in balance. If P4 is too low compared to E2, that receptive environment just doesn't fully develop.
Makes sense.
And we also see big impacts from underlying conditions, things like hypothyroidism or polycystic ovary syndrome, PCOS. These often lead to low P4 simply because they mess with ovulation. If you don't ovulate regularly or at all, you don't form a good corpus luteum.
So no natural P4 factory.
Exactly. In those cases, just adding P4 isn't the whole answer. You really need to treat the underlying thyroid issue or manage the PCOS to get the whole system working better. Address the root cause for overall hormonal harmony.
Okay, finally, let's talk about something that affects pretty much everyone today. Stress. Chronic stress. Can that actually mess with progesterone levels?
Oh, absolutely it can. There's this concept often called the pregnenolone steal.
Pregnenolone steal. Okay, break that down.
Sure. Progesterone and cortisol, the main stress hormone, they share a common building block, a precursor molecule called pregnenolone. When you're under chronic stress, your body goes into survival mode. It prioritizes making cortisol over making reproductive hormones like progesterone.
So the body literally steals the ingredients needed for P4 to make more cortisol instead.
That's exactly the idea. It diverts those shared resources. Over time, this can effectively lower your available progesterone levels, which is why lifestyle factors are genuinely important here.
Like what?
Managing stress mindfulness, relaxation techniques, whatever works for you. Getting enough sleep, really aiming for that 7 to 9 hours a night. And moderate, regular exercise. These aren't just nice to haves. They are real biological support systems. They help keep that cortisol demand in check so it doesn't hijack your P4 production. It's about treating the whole system holistically. Hashtag outro.
Wow. This has been a really deep dive into what truly feels like the decision maker in IVF. Progesterone, it's stabilizing, preparing, synchronizing that uterine environment with such incredible precision. And while the logistics, especially those injections, sound really challenging,
They definitely can be.
it's also clear how dedicated specialists are to getting it right for each person. That personalization seems key.
It really is. The specialist is constantly monitoring your unique levels, looking at your lining on the ultrasound, tailoring the delivery method and the timing to hit that critical, very narrow window of implantation. It's complex, but the careful management is quite remarkable.
Absolutely. Now, before we wrap up, we absolutely have to state this clearly. Everything we've discussed today is for informational and educational purposes only. It is not a substitute for professional medical advice. Please always consult your fertility specialist for personalized care based on your specific health situation and treatment plan. And if you would like more information on the complete process of in vitro fertilization, you can find more details on the portal IVF4me.com.